I was a 28-year-old software developer living what I thought was a pretty good life. For 2 years, Jessica and I had been building what seemed like the perfect relationship. That night at the upscale restaurant with crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths, I had plans to discuss our future. But instead, she looked straight into my eyes and said, "You are just a phase. I will settle down when I am done having fun." My response was simple: "Good to know." Little did she realize this moment would transform both our lives in ways she never anticipated. Before we continue this story, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want more stories about relationships and self-respect. Trust me, you will want to hear how this one ends. I first met Jessica at a tech conference in downtown Seattle. I was presenting a new software solution my team had developed, and she was there representing her marketing firm. She walked up to me after my presentation, business card in hand, with feedback that was both insightful and challenging. Her confidence was magnetic. With her perfectly styled dark hair designer outfit and the way she commanded attention in any room, Jessica was the kind of woman who turned heads. Our first date was supposed to be a quick coffee at a local shop. It turned into an 8-hour adventure through the city, visiting art galleries, walking along the waterfront, and eventually having dinner at a small Italian restaurant where we talked until the staff started stacking chairs around us. I still remember the way she laughed that night, throwing her head back slightly, her eyes crinkling at the corners. The first 3 months were a whirlwind. I planned surprise dates to keep up with her exciting lifestyle. One weekend, I took her wine tasting in a hot air balloon. Another time, I scored last-minute tickets to a Broadway show she had mentioned wanting to see. I was constantly thinking of ways to impress her, to keep that spark of interest in her eyes. It was during a weekend trip to a beachside cottage that I realized I was falling in love with her. We were walking along the shore at sunset, and she was telling me about her childhood dream of starting her own business. The passion in her voice, the way she gestured with her hands while describing her vision, it all just hit me at once. This was someone I could build a future with. After 8 months, we decided to move in together. It seemed like the logical next step. I had a decent apartment, but Jessica suggested we find a new place together, something more reflective of our shared aesthetic. We ended up in a high-rise downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city that took my breath away. So did the rent, but I figured it was worth it to build this life with her. As Jessica climbed higher in her career, becoming a senior marketing executive at just 31, our relationship dynamics began to shift subtly. Her job demanded more and more of her time, with late-night client dinners and weekend retreats becoming the norm rather than the exception. I was supportive, rearranging my schedule to accommodate hers, cooking dinner on the nights she came home late, listening to her vent about difficult clients. I began turning down social invitations with my friends because they conflicted with the rare evenings Jessica was free. At the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. I was being understanding, accommodating. I did not realize I was setting a precedent that my needs would always come second. Meeting her family was an eye-opening experience. They lived in a mansion in the suburbs with a gate and a circular driveway that could fit 6 cars. Her father was a successful investment banker who barely acknowledged my existence during our first meeting. Her mother, a former beauty queen turned charity organizer, asked pointed questions about my family background and education, frowning slightly at my answers. It was during this dinner that I first heard Jessica refer to me as her first boyfriend who did not attend an Ivy League school. She said it with a laugh, like it was an amusing quirk, but I saw the way her parents exchanged glances. Later that night, her father cornered me by the bar and asked about my 5-year plan, seeming unimpressed with my career trajectory at a mid-sized tech company. I began noticing other comments, too. When we met her ex-boyfriend Todd at a charity gala, Jessica spent 10 minutes afterward telling me about his new summer house in the Hamptons and how his investment firm was expanding to London. When I suggested a weekend camping trip, she wrinkled her nose and said she had outgrown rustic vacations after dating Jordan, who apparently owned a yacht. But I was in love, and it is amazing what you can rationalize when you are in love. I told myself that Jessica chose me despite having dated these wealthy, connected men. That must mean something, right? I ignored the way she sometimes looked at my modest car, a reliable Honda that was fully paid off, with a slight grimace. I pretended not to notice when she encouraged me to apply for positions at more prestigious companies. Her friends were another challenge entirely. They were all cut from the same cloth. Women with expensive highlights and designer clothes who worked in fashion marketing or public relations. Men who worked in finance or came from family money. During group dinners, they would often reminisce about vacations to places I had never been or discuss the merits of different luxury brands I could not afford. Marcy, Jessica's best friend since college, was the worst offender. "You are so different from Jessica's usual type," she told me once after several glasses of wine. "She usually goes for the Brooks Brothers type, you know. It is refreshing that she is trying something new." From the outside, our relationship probably looked perfect. Our Instagram was filled with photos from upscale restaurants, weekend getaways, to boutique hotels and charity events, where Jessica always looked stunning in gowns. I later learned cost more than my monthly rent. What those pictures did not show were the extra hours I was putting in at work, taking on freelance projects to keep up with the lifestyle Jessica expected. My old friend Alan tried to point this out to me about a year into our relationship. We had finally managed to grab beers after weeks of me canceling on him. "You know you have changed since you started dating Jessica," he said carefully, and not entirely in a good way. "When was the last time you went rock climbing or played in your basketball league?" I defended Jessica vigorously. "She is ambitious," I said. "She is pushing me to be better." The truth was, I had given up many of the activities I enjoyed because they did not fit into the image Jessica was cultivating for us. My worn climbing gear and basketball shoes had been relegated to a storage box, replaced by expensive dress shoes. I was still breaking in, and designer clothes that Jessica had helped select. The Christmas party at Jessica's firm was when I first heard someone else imply what Jessica would eventually say to my face. Her boss Martin cornered me by the bar after one too many whiskeys. "Jessica is going places in this company," he said, his words slightly slurred. "She has got the right look, the right background." He leaned in closer. "Between us, I have seen her type before. You are the transitional guy, the one before she settles down with someone from her world." I laughed it off at the time, but his words stuck with me. I began noticing more signs that perhaps Martin was right. The way Jessica would tense up when running into her colleagues or clients when I was dressed casually. The way she sometimes introduced me without mentioning my job. The fact that after 2 years I had still not been invited to her parents' home for any major holiday. But still, I convinced myself that what we had was real. That Jessica saw something in me beyond what others perceived. That was the mindset I had on that fateful night when I made reservations at Lumiere, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, with a 3-month waiting list that I had managed to circumvent through a client connection. The restaurant was exactly as pretentious as its reputation suggested. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings. Waiters moved silently between tables covered in pristine white tablecloths, and a pianist played softly in the corner. Jessica looked beautiful in a black dress I had never seen before, her hair swept up elegantly, diamonds sparkling at her ears, a gift from her parents for her 30th birthday. I had been planning this dinner for weeks, wanting the perfect setting to have a serious conversation about our future. We had been together for 2 years, living together for over a year, and I thought it was time to discuss next steps. Not necessarily marriage, not yet, but at least a conversation about where we were heading. Jessica seemed distracted throughout the appetizer course, checking her phone more often than usual. When I asked if everything was okay, she gave me a tight smile and said work was just busy. She barely touched her seared scallops, which was unusual since seafood was her favorite. As our main courses arrived, I decided to dive in. I reached across the table for her hand. "Jessica, I have been thinking about us, about our future," I began. Before I could continue, she pulled her hand away gently and set down her fork. "Francis, there is something I need to tell you," she said, her voice steady. "I have been offered an amazing opportunity, a promotion that would make me the youngest director in the company's history. That is incredible, I said, genuinely happy for her. We should be celebrating that, not just a random Tuesday. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. There is more. The position is in the London office. I would need to move within the next 2 months. I sat back processing this information. London was unexpected but not insurmountable. We could make it work. I could look for jobs there, or maybe work remotely for a while. Before I could offer these solutions, Jessica continued. I need to focus completely on this opportunity, Francis. It is everything I have worked for. She took a sip of her wine, then looked directly into my eyes. You are just a phase. I will settle down when I am done having fun. The restaurant noise faded to a dull buzz in my ears. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach, but somehow kept my expression neutral. Good to know, I replied, my voice calmer than I felt. The rest of dinner passed in excruciating silence. I mechanically ate food I could not taste. Jessica attempted small talk a few times, but I responded with one-word answers. I paid the bill, over $300 for a meal neither of us enjoyed, and we drove home in silence. That night I lay awake while Jessica slept beside me, her words replaying in my mind. You are just a phase. After 2 years together, after integrating our lives, after meeting her family and friends, after changing myself in countless small ways to fit into her world, I was just a phase. A temporary amusement until she was ready for someone who matched her social standing and ambitions. When morning came, Jessica acted as if nothing had happened. She kissed me goodbye before leaving for work, mentioning that she would be home late due to a client dinner. I called in sick to work for the first time in years, needing space to think. I spent the morning in a daze moving around our apartment, looking at the life we had built together. How many of the decisions had been mine? The expensive furniture she had insisted would elevate the space. The artwork selected to impress her friends. Even the coffee maker had been her choice, replacing my perfectly functional one because it did not match the aesthetic she wanted. By afternoon, I had called Alan. We met at a dive bar we used to frequent before Jessica came into my life. I told him everything, including her exact words. That is cold, man, he said, shaking his head. But honestly, not surprising. Alan had always been direct. One of the reasons Jessica did not like him much. She never respected you the way a partner should. His words stung, but I knew they contained truth. The pain I felt was morphing into something else: resolve. I would not confront Jessica in anger. I would not beg her to reconsider. Instead, I would take her at her word and start planning my exit. That evening, I began a strategic withdrawal from the relationship, though Jessica did not realize it yet. I opened a separate bank account and transferred my savings. I updated my resume and began applying for positions at companies I actually admired. Not just the prestigious names Jessica thought would look good on my professional profile. I texted friends I had not seen in months, including my old rock climbing group. I dug out my climbing shoes and basketball from storage. When Jessica asked about my sudden interest in reconnecting with these activities, I simply said I had missed them. She seemed pleased, perhaps, thinking I was developing more independent interests while she prepared for her London move. What she did not notice was that I was reclaiming parts of myself that I had set aside for her. With each passing day, I felt more like the person I had been before our relationship, but with a new awareness of my own worth. Jessica began to notice changes in my behavior after about 2 weeks. I was coming home later due to basketball games and climbing sessions. I was less available by text during the day. I had stopped asking about her day with the same attentiveness. Initially, she seemed to find this amusing, even attractive. You are being very mysterious lately, she said one night, attempting to initiate intimacy. I think I like this new independent streak. What she interpreted as a new side of me designed to interest her was actually me rediscovering who I was without her influence. As I reconnected with my authentic self, I found my confidence growing. I no longer felt the need to impress Jessica or earn her approval. Her amusement turned to anxiety as the changes continued. She began calling more often when I was out, asking pointed questions about who I was with and when I would be home. The control she had always exerted subtly was becoming more obvious as she felt it slipping away. My professional transformation began with an unexpected LinkedIn message. A startup that was disrupting the healthcare technology space wanted to interview me based on a project I had worked on 2 years earlier. It was exactly the kind of meaningful work I had always wanted to do, creating software that actually helped people rather than just generating profit. The interview process moved quickly. Within 2 weeks, I had met with the founding team 3 times and received an offer with a significant salary increase. The best part was that they valued innovation and work-life balance, encouraging remote work 2 days a week and offering generous vacation time. I accepted the position on the spot but told no one except Alan, not my current employers and certainly not Jessica. I gave notice at my job but asked my manager to keep it confidential for the time being, explaining that I wanted to tell my girlfriend in my own way. With my career change secured, I turned my attention to housing. Our lease had another 4 months, but I had no intention of staying that long. I found a modern one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood I had always liked, more affordable than our current place, but with character and proximity to a climbing gym. I signed the lease and paid the deposit from my separate account. While Jessica was at work, I carefully documented our shared possessions, taking photos and creating a spreadsheet of what belonged to whom and what we had purchased together. I began subtly removing my personal items, taking a few books or clothing items each day to store at Alan's place. Jessica became increasingly suspicious of my behavior. One evening, she confronted me about a dress shirt that was no longer in our closet. I told her I had taken it for dry cleaning, which was partially true. It was being cleaned, but it would be going to my new apartment afterward. "Have you been acting different because of what I said at Lumiere?" she asked suddenly. About London and focusing on my career, I kept my expression neutral. "I have just been thinking about what I want too," I replied. She seemed satisfied with this answer, perhaps believing I was simply processing her announcement. In reality, I was executing a carefully planned exit strategy. The confrontation I had been preparing for happened sooner than expected. Jessica came home early from work one day and found the job offer letter I had carelessly left on my laptop. I was in the shower when I heard her voice tight with anger. "What is this?" she demanded when I emerged. "You accepted a new job without telling me." I wrapped a towel around my waist, feeling strangely calm. "Yes, I did. How could you make such a huge decision without consulting me? We are supposed to be partners." The irony of her statement was not lost on me. "Are we?" I asked quietly. I was under the impression I was just a phase. Her face flushed. "That was just. I did not mean it like that. I was stressed about the London opportunity. You know I care about you." I got dressed while she continued explaining how her words had been misconstrued, how much our relationship meant to her. When I emerged from the bedroom, I cut her off mid-sentence. "I am taking your words to heart, Jessica. You have plans for your future that do not include me. That is okay. I have decided to make plans that do not include you." She stared at me, shock evident on her face. This was perhaps the first time in our relationship that I had directly contradicted her. "But you cannot just end things like this," she said, her voice rising. "After everything we have been through, you already ended things," I said. "At Lumiere. I am just making it official." What followed was a display of emotional manipulation that would have worked on the old me. Jessica cried, saying she had been confused, that she did not want to lose me, that we could work through this. When tears did not work, she became angry, accusing me of planning this all along, of being deceptive, of betraying her trust. Through it all, I remained calm. I had spent years accommodating her emotions, adjusting my behavior to avoid her displeasure. It was strangely liberating to simply let her feelings be her own without taking responsibility for them. By the end of the night, it was clear to both of us that our relationship was over. I slept on the couch, and in the morning told her I would be moving out that weekend. This triggered another round of emotional appeals, but my decision was made. Jessica went into full crisis management mode, a skill she had honed in her professional life. She called her parents, who then called me, her father offering to help me secure a position at his friend's company in London, if that was the issue. Her mother suggested we seek couples counseling, conveniently overlooking the fact that she had never fully approved of me. Jessica enlisted her friends as well. Marcy called to tell me I was making a huge mistake, that I would never find someone like Jessica again. I agreed with her, saying that was precisely the point. Moving day arrived with a sense of finality. Alan and 3 other friends I had reconnected with helped load my belongings into a rented truck. I had been methodical in my preparations, already having notified utilities and updating my address with important services. Jessica oscillated between cold silence and emotional outbursts throughout the process. As we removed the last of my things, she handed me a handwritten letter and asked me to read it when I was alone. I thanked her politely and left the keys to our shared apartment on the counter. The letter, which I read that evening in my new place, was a combination of apology and manipulation. She admitted her comment had been cruel, but insisted it came from a place of fear about our future. She listed all the ways we were perfect together and suggested I was throwing away something special because of one careless comment. I did not respond to the letter or to the series of texts that followed over the next few days. I focused instead on settling into my new apartment and preparing for my new job. Jessica showed up unannounced at my new place a week after I moved out. A neighbor had let her into the building. She stood at my door, makeup perfectly applied, despite the tears in her eyes, asking for 5 minutes of my time. I let her in briefly, maintaining clear boundaries. She had brought photos of us together, souvenirs from trips we had taken, as if physical reminders of our relationship would change my mind. "I am not coming back, Jessica," I said firmly. "What you said at dinner did not create these problems, it just revealed them. We want different things." She left eventually, but it was not the last attempt. For several weeks, she alternated between angry messages accusing me of wasting her time and sweet reminiscences about our good moments. I responded to neither. The first few weeks in my new apartment were a revelation. I arranged the furniture according to my preferences, hung artwork that I genuinely enjoyed, rather than pieces selected for their impression on others. I bought a comfortable couch that would not have met Jessica's standards, but felt like home to me. My new job exceeded my expectations. The team was collaborative and passionate about using technology to improve healthcare access. My ideas were valued, and for the first time in years, I felt truly engaged with my work. The increase in salary was nice, but the sense of purpose was the real reward. I reconnected with family members I had seen less frequently during my relationship with Jessica. My younger sister visited from Portland and commented on how much more relaxed I seemed. My parents, who had always been polite but reserved around Jessica, noted that I laughed more easily now. Jessica's attempts to reconcile continued, becoming increasingly desperate. She sent elaborate gifts to my workplace. She emailed long analyses of where our relationship had gone wrong and how we could fix it. She even enlisted mutual acquaintances to casually mention her in conversations with me. I maintained firm boundaries through it all, which only seemed to intensify her efforts. The woman who had once seen me as a phase was now determined to win me back at any cost. My focus, however, was on rebuilding my life and rediscovering who I was outside of Jessica's influence. I resumed rock climbing 3 times a week. I joined a recreational basketball league. I took cooking classes, something Jessica had dismissed as unnecessary since we could always order in. About 6 weeks after our breakup, Jessica escalated her attempts by showing up at my workplace. She waited in the lobby with a bouquet of expensive flowers, causing a scene when security would not let her up to my floor. My new boss, Dana, was understanding about the situation and even offered advice based on her own experience with difficult breakups. The workplace incident coincided with Jessica's social media campaign to win me back. She began posting throwback photos of us with captions about forgiveness and second chances. She wrote cryptic quotes about regret and lost love. Friends who followed both of us messaged me concerned about her state of mind. It was during this turbulent period that I met Natalie. She was a project manager at my new company, intelligent and down-to-earth with a quick wit and an infectious laugh. We were assigned to the same team for a major initiative and spent many hours working together. Unlike my relationship with Jessica, which had begun with intensity and romance, my connection with Natalie developed naturally through shared work and genuine conversation. She was refreshingly direct, asking thoughtful questions, and actually listening to the answers. She wore minimal makeup dressed for comfort, rather than status, and drove an old Subaru she had named Betsy. We became friends first, grabbing lunch together during workdays and occasionally joining a group of colleagues for happy hour. She never pushed for more, and I appreciated the space to heal from my previous relationship. Jessica, meanwhile, had somehow discovered I was spending time with a woman from work. She managed to be at the same restaurant where a group of us, including Natalie, were having dinner after completing a project milestone. Jessica approached our table immaculately dressed as always, and introduced herself to my colleagues as my girlfriend. "We are just working through some things," she said with a practiced smile. I corrected her immediately. "Jessica is my ex-girlfriend," I said firmly. "We broke up 2 months ago." What followed was one of Jessica's most public meltdowns. She accused me of cheating, of using her, of planning my exit while she was offering me a chance to build a life with her in London. My colleagues watched in stunned silence as I calmly escorted Jessica outside, where I called her a rideshare and insisted she leave. Natalie never mentioned the incident directly, but the next day she left a chocolate bar and a funny card on my desk that said, "Drama-free friendship available here." It was the perfect response, acknowledging what had happened without making it a bigger deal than it needed to be. Throughout this period, I was working with a therapist to process the relationship with Jessica and understand the patterns that had led me to lose so much of myself in it. Dr. Kaplan helped me recognize the subtle emotional manipulation that had characterized our dynamic, the way Jessica's validation had become too important to my sense of worth. We talked about my family background, how growing up with a critical father had perhaps primed me to seek approval in my relationships. We explored why I had been willing to change so many aspects of myself to fit Jessica's expectations. Most importantly, we worked on strategies to ensure I would not repeat these patterns in future relationships. I learned to forgive myself for the ways I had compromised my identity. I began to see that maintaining strong boundaries was not selfish but necessary for healthy connections. I practiced saying no to things that did not align with my values, a skill that had atrophied during my time with Jessica. 6 months after the breakup, I felt genuinely happy in a way I had not experienced in years. My new job was challenging and fulfilling. I had rebuilt friendships and family connections. My apartment felt like a true reflection of who I was. I was even dating casually, though nothing serious. The real test came when I ran into Jessica at an industry conference. She looked as polished as ever, but there was a new wariness in her eyes when she saw me. We spoke briefly, exchanging professional pleasantries. As she turned to leave, she paused. "You look good, Francis," she said quietly. "Happy." "I am," I replied simply. "I made a mistake," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I did not realize what I had until it was gone. I did not respond with anger or satisfaction, just acceptance." "I hope you find what you are looking for, Jessica," I said sincerely. "We all deserve that." Walking away from that conversation, I felt the last piece of our shared history settle into place. No bitterness, no regret, just lessons learned and growth achieved. A year after Jessica told me I was just a phase, my life had transformed completely. I had been promoted at work, leading an innovative project that could help thousands of patients. My friendship with Natalie had evolved naturally into something deeper, a relationship based on mutual respect and genuine appreciation for who we truly were. Unlike my time with Jessica, I did not feel the need to perform or impress with Natalie. We enjoyed simple pleasures, hiking on weekends, trying new recipes together, binge-watching sci-fi shows neither of us had seen. When Natalie succeeded at work, I celebrated her achievements without feeling threatened. When we disagreed, we talked it through with honesty and kindness. Jessica eventually did move to London for her position. She occasionally liked my professional updates on LinkedIn but otherwise maintained her distance. According to mutual acquaintances, she was dating a British investment banker who fit perfectly into her ambitious lifestyle. I genuinely hoped she had found happiness. The final communication from Jessica came in the form of a text on what would have been our third anniversary. "I know you have moved on and I respect that," she wrote, "but I wanted you to know that you changed me. I realized too late what really matters. Thank you for teaching me that lesson, even though it cost us both so much." I did not respond, but I appreciated her message. Sometimes the worst things people say to us become our greatest motivations to change and grow. Her casual cruelty at dinner that night had ultimately freed me to become a stronger, more authentic version of myself. Her words, "You are just a phase," had indeed been accurate, though not in the way she intended. That version of me, the one who would shrink to fit someone else's expectations, who would set aside his own needs and values to earn love, was just a phase. I had moved beyond it into something much more real and lasting: self-respect. Have you ever had someone underestimate you and lived to see them regret it? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding your worth after being undervalued. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes the people who walk away from you do you the greatest favor of all. They make room for something better to enter your life.